A 10-year-old black child in scuffed sneakers walks into a gleaming bank on a Tuesday morning and asks to check an account balance. The lobby, filled with the quiet hum of privilege and transaction, goes silent, not in welcome, but in judgment. A manager's laugh cuts through the marble and glass like a blade, sharp in public, and suddenly the room must choose mockery or silence. Most choose mockery. No one expects what comes next. The boy does not run. He does not beg or plead or make himself smaller than he already is. He stands there, small but steady, with an old letter clutched in his hand, a letter that carries the weight of generations, of sacrifice, of a grandmother's entire life folded into wages and hope. What happens in the next 2 hours will expose who we are when power meets prejudice, when comfort confronts cruelty, and when a child's dignity becomes the mirror we didn't want to look into. Asterisk. The morning begins like every other morning at First National Bank's downtown branch. Sunlight streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching on polished marble floors and gleaming brass fixtures. The air carries that particular scent of air conditioning and expensive cologne, of money managed and futures secured. Customers move through the space with the practiced rhythm of people who belong tailored suits, leather briefcases, phones pressed to ears conducting business that cannot wait. Behind the counter, tellers arrange their stations with mechanical precision. Pens aligned, screens glowing, smiles ready to deploy at appropriate intervals. The morning shift has its own choreography, learned over years of performance. Greet the regular with recognition, process the transaction with efficiency, maintain the atmosphere of professional warmth that makes people feel their money is in. Good Hands. Branch manager Robert Chun occupies his glass-walled office like a captain on a bridge. From here, he can survey his domain, every transaction, every interaction, every employee performing their role in the machine of commerce. He has worked in banking for 15 years, climbing from teller to assistant manager to this position of authority. His office displays the markers of success, framed certificates, a crystal award for excellence in customer service, photographs with local business leaders. On his desk sits a nameplate that catches the light. Robert Chen, branch manager. Chen prides himself on his ability to read people. In banking, he often says, "You learn to spot trouble before it walks through the door. You learn to recognize the customers who matter and the ones who waste your time. You learn to protect the institution from those who would take advantage, who would try to access resources they haven't earned, who would disrupt the careful order of things." This morning, he stands at his office door with a coffee mug in hand, surveying his branch with satisfaction. The quarterly numbers are strong. Corporate has noticed. The promotion to regional supervisor is whispered as imminent. Everything is proceeding according to plan. He does not yet know that in less than 10 minutes, that plan will collide with a 10-year-old boy named Marcus Johnson. Marcus wakes that same morning in a small apartment, where morning light filters through curtains his grandmother sewed by hand. The apartment is clean but worn, the kind of place where every object is kept because it still has use. Where nothing is wasted because waste is a luxury they cannot afford. His grandmother's bedroom door is closed. It has been closed for 3 months now since the funeral, since the world tilted and left him with his uncle who works 2 jobs and is rarely home. Today is important. Today, Marcus must go to the bank. He dresses carefully in clothes that don't quite fit, pants a little too long, a jacket that swallows his thin frame, shoes that once belonged to a cousin and show every mile they've traveled. He has learned to move carefully in these clothes, to avoid drawing attention to the gaps between what he wears and what others expect. At school, he perfects invisibility. In stores, he keeps his hands visible, moves slowly, follows every rule to the letter. His grandmother taught him these lessons without words, through example. She taught him that for a black child in America, the margin for error is razor thin, that politeness is armor. That dignity must be carried internally because the world will try to strip it from you externally. That you represent not just yourself, but everyone who looks like you, whether you asked for that burden or not. In his pocket, Marcus carries a brown envelope. Inside, a letter in his grandmother's careful handwriting, a bank card with raised letters spelling his name and a school ID that proves he exists. The letter explains everything: how his grandmother, Evelyn Johnson, worked as a housekeeper for 43 years, How she saved every spare dollar. How she opened an account for Marcus when he was born. How she fed it week by week. Sacrifice. By sacrifice, building a future from quarters and faith. The account was meant for college. For opportunity. For a ladder out of the circumstances that had defined her life and her mother's life and generations before. It was meant to be a gift delivered when Marcus turned 18, but life had other plans. 3 months ago, a stroke took Evelyn while she was scrubbing someone else's floor. Marcus found the envelope in her Bible, tucked between Psalms and Proverbs, with a note that simply said, "Asterisk for my Marcus, so you can be anything." Asterisk today. His uncle needs him to verify the account, to get documents sorted so the lawyer can process the estate. Simple administrative business. Marcus doesn't know the balance. The envelope only has the account number, but he knows it represents every late night his grandmother came home with aching knees. Every bus ride in rain and cold, every meal she skipped so he could eat. He takes the number 7 bus downtown. The city slides past the windows. Neighborhoods that shift in racial and economic composition like geological layers, each with its own rules and dangers. The bus fills and empties with people heading to jobs that pay. By the hour, people who know the weight of counted minutes and calculated risk. Marcus sits near the back, the envelope pressed against his chest like a talisman. The bank rises before him like a temple. Marble columns, bronze doors, glass that reflects the sky. He has walked past it 100 times but never entered. It exists in a different world than his, a world of polished surfaces and quiet voices, where money is discussed in tones reserved for sacred things. Marcus takes a breath, pushes through the heavy door, and steps into the light. Asterisk, the temperature change hits first. The aggressive air conditioning that makes the space feel separate from the world outside, climate-controlled and isolated. Then the smell. Furniture polish, printer toner, something floral from a diffuser meant to suggest luxury. The acoustics make every sound crisp and carrying. Conversations at the teller windows echo across marble, giving the space the quality of a stage where every performance is public. Marcus stands just inside the entrance, letting his eyes adjust to the interior lighting. He counts 6 teller windows, 4 open, a sitting area with leather chairs that look like they've never been sat in, a water station with a dispenser that probably costs more than his uncle's monthly rent, potted plants that are too perfect to be real, and people, so many people moving with purpose and belonging, none of them looking like him. He is aware, immediately and acutely, that he does not fit here. His clothes are wrong. His shoes make a scuffing sound on the marble that seems too loud. His presence disrupts the aesthetic of wealth and professionalism that the space carefully cultivates. He can feel eyes landing on him and sliding away. Quick assessments made and judgments rendered in seconds. A white woman in a business suit glances at him, then clutches her purse closer. A security guard, the only other black face in the lobby, tracks his movement with eyes that carry apology and warning in equal measure. 2 tellers pause in their conversation to look, then lean closer to each other, words hidden behind hands. Marcus approaches the nearest open teller window. The woman behind the glass is young, white, with hair pulled back in a ponytail that suggests efficiency. Her smile is automatic, but it flickers when she registers who has approached her station. "How can I help you?" The words are correct, but the tone carries a question mark that has nothing to do with the sentence. "I need to check my account balance, please." Marcus's voice is quiet, practiced in the art of being non-threatening. He slides the envelope under the glass partition. The teller, her name tag reads, Jessica, picks up the envelope like it might be contaminated. She opens it slowly, examining the contents with a skepticism that seems disproportionate to the simple request. The letter, the bank card, the school ID, she spreads them on her counter and stares at them as if they're a puzzle. She cannot solve. "This account, ... double quotes," she begins, then stops. Her eyes flick to the card, to the name, to Marcus's face. "Where did you get this card?" "It's mine. My grandmother opened the account for me." "And where is your grandmother?" "She passed away 3 months ago." Asterisk, Jessica's expression doesn't soften with sympathy. Instead, something hardens. "I see, and you're here alone?" "My uncle is at work. He said I could come verify the account. It's mine. My name is on the card." The teller's fingers hover over her keyboard but don't type. She glances past Marcus toward the branch manager's office and something passes across her face, a decision made, a line drawn. I need to get my supervisor. She stands without waiting for a response, taking the envelope with her. Marcus is left standing at the window, aware that the lobby has grown quieter, that conversations have paused, that he has become a spectacle without understanding how or why. Robert Chen emerges from his office with the posture of a man ready to solve a problem. Jessica intercepts him halfway across the lobby, leaning close to speak in whispers that aren't quite quiet enough. Marcus catches fragments. ... Suspicious ... Just a kid. Premium card ... Doesn't add up ... Chen takes the envelope, examines the contents, and his eyebrows rise. For a moment, just a flash, there's confusion. The card is real. The account number matches their system format. But then his eyes land on Marcus. The too big jacket, the worn shoes, the dark skin, the careful stillness of a child trying not to be a threat, and Robert Chun makes a choice. He walks toward Marcus, not with the welcoming demeanor he reserves for actual customers, but with the stride of security confronting an intruder. His voice, when he speaks, is loud enough to carry across the entire lobby, a performance for an audience that is rapidly becoming invested in the show. Young man, where did you get this card? It's mine, sir. My grandmother, this is a premium account card. Chun holds it up like evidence. Do you understand what that means? This is for accounts with significant balances. Accounts held by our most valued customers. His tone makes clear that he has already determined Marcus could not be, a valued customer. My grandmother saved, I'm sure she did. The words are patronizing, dismissive. But this card doesn't belong to you. Now I'm going to need you to tell me the truth about where you got it. Did someone give it to you? Did you find it somewhere? No, sir, it's mine. I have a letter. Letters can be faked. Chun is warming to his role now, his voice growing. More confident as he senses the lobby's attention. Cards can be stolen. I've worked in banking for 15 years and I know fraud when I see it. The word fraud lands in the lobby like a stone in water, sending ripples of reaction through the gathered customers. Heads turn fully now, no longer pretending not to watch. Phones come out not to use but to potentially record. The security guard shifts his weight, hand moving closer to his radio. Marcus feels his heart hammering in his chest. He has done nothing wrong. He has brought identification, followed instructions, asked politely. Yet somehow he has become a criminal, accused. In public, his dignity shredded by assumptions that have nothing to do with the evidence in front of them. Sir, please, if you just check the account, I'll be checking several things. Chun interrupts. His hand moves to Marcus's shoulder, not violently but firmly, steering him away from the teller windows toward a corner of the lobby, including how a child ended up with a card that doesn't belong to him. Jessica, call security to hold him while we verify. And someone should probably call the police. We take fraud very seriously here. The lobby watches. Some faces show discomfort, but no one speaks. Some show satisfaction, confirmation of suspicions they carried through the door. Some hide behind screens, filming a moment that will haunt them later. And Marcus, 10 years old and alone, feels the weight of every stereotype, every assumption, every piece of rage and fear that Black families pass down as survival tools. His grandmother's voice echoes in his memory. Asterisk. Keep your hands visible. Speak politely. Don't give them a reason. Asterisk, he has followed every rule. And still, here he stands, accused. Asterisk. The corner where Robert Chen deposits Marcus is strategically chosen visible from every angle of the lobby, but isolated enough to make the boy feel alone. It's near the promotional display for investment services with its glossy photos of happy families and secure futures, images that mock the reality of Marcus's current situation. A leather chair sits empty beside him, too fancy to sit in without permission. Another small reminder of his displacement, Chen plants himself between Marcus and the rest of the bank, arms crossed, stance wide, a living barrier that performs protection for the lobby while performing interrogation for the boy. His voice carries, each word chosen to reinforce the narrative he's building. Young, black, alone, and therefore suspicious. Let's start from the beginning, Chen says, though his tone suggests he's already written the ending.
What's your full name?
Marcus Elijah Johnson. And where do you live, Marcus? Marcus provides his address, the apartment complex on the south side, and he watches Chun's expression shift, a subtle smugness, a confirmation of preconceptions. The address alone tells a story in Chun's mind, a geography of assumptions about poverty and crime and who deserves benefit of doubt. And your grandmother, the one you say opened this account, what was her name? Evelyn Johnson. Evelyn Marie Johnson.
Where did she work? She cleaned houses. She was a housekeeper. Chun's eyebrow arches, and he exchanges a glance with Jessica, who has positioned herself nearby, arms crossed in mirror of her manager. The math, in their minds, doesn't compute. A housekeeper doesn't open premium accounts. A black housekeeper from the south side doesn't accumulate wealth. The facts, Marcus? Presents don't fit the story they've already decided is true, so the facts themselves become suspect. A housekeeper, Chen repeats, voice dripping with skepticism. And she managed to save enough for a premium account? That requires a minimum balance of $250,000, son. The number hangs in the air like an accusation. Marcus's eyes widen. He had
no idea. The envelope only contained an account number, no balance.
The figure is staggering, impossible to reconcile with the small apartment and secondhand clothes and meals stretched thin. But Chun reads Marcus's surprise as confession, as the moment the con falls apart. You didn't know that, did you? Because this isn't your account. This is someone else's card, and I don't know if you stole it or someone put you up to this. But either way, you're in a lot of trouble. I didn't steal anything. Marcus's voice rises, then catches. He knows, has been taught that a black child raising his voice to a white authority figure is dangerous, is confirmation of every ugly assumption, is justification for escalation. He forces his voice back down. Please, sir, just check the account. My name is on it. I can prove. You've proven enough already. Chun cuts him off. Jerry, come here. The security guard approaches slowly. Jerry Washington is 53. Years old, 25 years on various security jobs, and he carries in his body the accumulated weight of every compromise. He's made to keep employment in a country that criminalizes black skin. He sees himself in Marcus, sees his own grandson, sees the thousand small indignities and large injustices that have been the background. Radiation of his life, asterisk, but he also sees his mortgage payment, his wife's medical bills, his retirement that might actually happen if he doesn't make waves. He sees the camera in the corner monitoring his performance, the manager who writes his evaluations, the easy replaceability of a black security guard who doesn't follow orders. Jerry, stay with this young man while we verify his story, Chun instructs. Make sure he doesn't go anywhere. The words are chosen carefully, never quite saying detain or suspect, maintaining plausible deniability while creating an atmosphere of accusation. Jerry positions himself near Marcus, not touching but present, a visual message to the lobby. This child is a threat that requires watching. Marcus sits in the leather chair, finally, because his legs are shaking. The envelope rests on his lap. His grandmother's letter, which he's read 100 times, feels like the only solid thing in a world that has suddenly become quicksand. The lobby is fully committed to the show now. A businessman in an expensive suit pauses his transaction. To watch, his face arranged in that particular expression of concern that's really just curiosity wearing a mask. Two women near the investment desk lean together, whispering behind manicured hands. A teenager pulls out her phone, not even subtle about recording, because this is content, this is something to share. This is someone else's humiliation transformed. Into her entertainment. Chen makes a production of returning to his office, of making phone calls, of consulting with staff. Every few minutes, he emerges to ask Marcus another question, each one designed to find inconsistency, to trap the boy. In contradiction. Your grandmother, when did she open this account? I don't know exactly. When I was born, I think, 10 years ago. And you expect me to believe she put $250,000 away in 10 years on a housekeeper's salary? I don't know how much is in there. I just know she saved. Where did you go to school, Marcus? Asterisk, Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary on Ashland. And your grades? The question seems irrelevant until Marcus realizes what Chun is doing, building a profile, assembling pieces that confirm bias, deciding whether Marcus is articulate enough or smart enough to be telling the truth, as if intelligence or Education should determine whether a child is treated with basic dignity. Mostly B's, some A's, Marcus answers, hating that he has to defend his worth through academic performance, that his humanity requires a resume. Time stretches. 10 minutes becomes 20, becomes 30. Each passing minute is a fresh humiliation. Because everyone in the lobby can see him sitting there, detained, suspected, guilty until proven innocent because his skin is his own conviction.
A white woman enters the bank with her young daughter, maybe 7 years old. The girl stares at Marcus with open curiosity, and Marcus can see the question forming. Can see the mother notice her daughter's attention and lean down to whisper something that makes the girl's eyes go wide. They give Marcus a wide berth on their way to a teller, and the mother's hand stays on her daughter's shoulder, protective against a threat that exists only in her imagination. Marcus wants to scream,
I am not dangerous, I am scared. I am alone. I am trying to honor my grandmother's memory, and you have turned me into a monster. But he stays silent. Because that, too, is a survival skill. Another customer finishes her transaction and walks toward the exit. She has to pass near Marcus, and he sees her grip her purse tighter, sees her speed up slightly, sees her eyes avoid his face. It's such a small thing, such a familiar thing. But today, it lands different. Today, after everything, the accumulated weight of 1,000 small rejections becomes unbearable. Marcus feels his eyes burning, feels tears threatening, and he fights them back with everything he has because crying here now will be seen as guilt or manipulation, will give them another reason to dismiss him. Jerry, standing nearby, sees the boy struggle. Something shifts in his chest, a lock turning, a door that's been rusted shut starting to crack open. He thinks of his own grandson, thinks of all the times he's looked away, thinks of what his silence costs, but not yet. He's not ready yet. So he stays silent and the moment passes. Chen returns from his office with a printed paper and an expression of vindication. I've pulled the account history, he announces, loud enough for the lobby to hear. And there are some very interesting irregularities. Large deposits that don't fit the pattern. Recent activity that seems suspicious. Marcus doesn't understand banking terminology, doesn't know what's normal or irregular. He only knows that his grandmother saved money week by week, year by year. That was the promise. That was the truth. Sir, please what? Please. Let you commit fraud in my bank? Chun is playing to the crowd now, feeding off their attention. He's become the hero of his own story, the vigilant manager who spotted the con, who protected the institution and its legitimate customers from those who would take advantage. Maybe we should just check the account, Jessica suggests quietly, perhaps sensing that the performance has gone too far. Verify the name match and validate whatever scam this is? Chun shakes his head. No, we follow protocol. We verify everything before giving a con artist access to someone else's hard-earned money. The word con artist applied to a 10-year-old child hanging in the air, absurd and cruel. Marcus stares at the floor, at his scuffed shoes, and thinks about his grandmother's hands, how they were always rough from chemicals, how they rubbed his head when he was sick, how they wrote the letter he carries, forming each word with careful love. A phone rings, breaking the tension. Not Chun's phone, but Marcus's a cheap flip phone in his jacket pocket. He pulls it out, sees his uncle's name, and the relief that floods through him is almost painful. Don't answer that, Chun orders. It's my uncle. I said don't. Answer it. Chun reaches out, and for a moment it seems he might snatch the phone away, but he stops himself, aware perhaps of how that would look, aware of the cameras and witnesses. If your uncle is real, he can come to the bank himself. The phone stops ringing. Marcus stares at it, at the missed call notification, and feels hope draining away. His uncle works construction, probably can't leave the site, probably doesn't even know what's happening. Marcus is alone in this moment, and the adults around him have decided he doesn't deserve belief. 40-5 minutes have passed. The lobby has cycled through customers, but a core audience remains, people who could leave but choose to stay, who have turned Marcus's crisis into their entertainment. Some have the grace to look uncomfortable. Others lean into the spectacle. With barely concealed glee, a businessman with silver hair checks his watch and sighs loudly. Is this going to take much longer? Some of us have actual business to conduct.
Chun turns to him, apologetic. I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Harrison. We're just dealing with a security situation. We'll have you help shortly. Security situation, Harrison repeats, looking at Marcus. He's a child. A child with a stolen credit card, Chen replies, and Marcus watches Harrison's expression shift from annoyance to acceptance. As if Chun's words have provided the permission to stop carrying Dot in the corner, Marcus unfolds his grandmother's. Let her one more time. His hands are shaking now. The paper is soft from repeated reading, the crease is deep, but the words remain clear. Asterisk, my dearest Marcus, asterisk, asterisk, if you are reading this, then I am gone but not forgotten. Every dollar in this account is a prayer I said for your future. Every deposit is a piece of my heart set aside so that you could reach higher than I ever could. I cleaned floors so you could walk through doors that were closed to me. I worked nights so you could dream in peace. Asterisk, asterisk. Don't ever let anyone make you small. Don't let this world convince you that you are less than you are. You come from strong people, baby. You come from people who survived everything and still loved hard. That money is yours, but it's also a responsibility. Use it to build something good. Use it to honor the people who came before you. Use it to open doors for those who will come after. Asterisk, asterisk, you are my greatest achievement, Marcus Elijah Johnson. Not the money, not the account, but you. The money is just a tool. Your character, your heart, your dignity, that's what matters. Asterisk, asterisk, walk with. Your head up, baby. You have earned your place in this world. Asterisk, asterisk, the tears come now, and Marcus can't stop them. They roll down his face silently, each one carrying the weight of loneliness and fear and rage and grief. He misses his grandmother with an ache that feels physical. He wishes she were here to explain, to protect, to make the adults see what they refuse to see. Jerry, watching the boy cry, feels something break inside himself. He thinks, asterisk, this is the moment. This is the line. A paycheck is not worth a child's dignity. Asterisk, but still not yet. The courage is building, but hasn't reached critical mass. So Jerry stays silent, hating himself, while a 10-year-old cries alone in a bank lobby. Outside. A black Mercedes pulls up to the curb. Asterisk, the black Mercedes that pulls up to the curb is not ostentatious, but it carries the quiet confidence of quality German engineering. Leather interior, the kind of vehicle that announces its owner understands value. The driver's door opens, and a man emerges with the purposeful stride of someone accustomed to being taken seriously. James Johnson is 42 years old, 6'3", with the bearing of a man who has fought for every inch of respect and refuses to apologize for occupying space. He wears a tailored charcoal suit, the cut precise, the fabric speaking to success earned rather than inherited. His shoes are polished to a mirror shine. His watch is elegant but not flashy, a Rolex Datejust worn not for show but as a tool. A reminder that time is the one resource that cannot be recovered. He is Marcus's uncle, his grandmother's son, and he is late because he was in a meeting with investors who could not be rescheduled. His phone shows 7 missed calls from Marcus, each one a stab of guilt, and he has come at a speed that risked tickets, but could not risk his nephew waiting alone any longer. James pushes through the bank's bronze doors with barely controlled urgency. His eyes scan the lobby, and what he sees makes his jaw tighten, his nephew in the corner, face wet with tears. A security guard standing over him like he's a criminal, and the entire lobby arranged as audience to a child's humiliation. The energy in the room shifts the moment James enters. It's not just his physical presence, though that's substantial. It's something else, the way he moves through space as if he owns it. The way his eyes assess and calculate, the way his very existence disrupts the narrative the bank has been. Writing for the past hour, Robert Chen looks up from his performance and feels the first flutter of doubt in his stomach. The man walking toward them doesn't fit the story Chen has been telling. The suit alone probably costs 3 months of Chen's salary. The watch is real, not fake. The bearing is that of someone who knows lawyers, who knows power, who knows exactly how much trouble Chen might be in. Marcus, James says, his voice controlled but carrying. Are you all right? Marcus looks up, and the relief that floods his face is painful to witness. Uncle James, what's going on here? James turns to Chen, and his tone has shifted from concern to something sharper.
Why is my nephew crying? Why is security standing over him like he's a threat? Chun recovers quickly, or tries to. He extends a hand that James does not take. Sir, I'm Robert Chen, branch manager. We've been dealing with a situation regarding a potentially fraudulent account. Fraudulent? James's voice cuts like a blade. My nephew came here with proper identification to check on an account that his grandmother, my mother, opened for him. Where exactly is the fraud? The card he presented is for a premium account and given his ... circumstances. Chun gestures vaguely at Marcus, at his clothes, at the constellation of assumptions he's built. ... We felt it necessary to verify his circumstances? James repeats, and the temperature in the lobby seems to drop. Please, Mr. Chen, elaborate. What circumstances are we discussing?
Chun realizes he's stepped into dangerous territory, but the hole has been dug and he's still holding the shovel. Well, the account has a significant balance, and it seemed unlikely that a child arriving alone, without identification from the account holder *, he has identification, you have his card. You have his school ID, you have a letter from my mother explaining everything. What more verification do you need? Jessica, the teller, interjects nervously. The letter could have
Been forged? Forged? James's attention swings to her, and she takes an involuntary step back. You're suggesting that a 10-year-old child orchestrated an elaborate forgery scheme, involving premium bank cards and handwritten letters? Have you even checked the account? Have you verified his name against the account holder information? The silence that follows is deafening. Chun's face goes through several expressions, realization, then calculation, then the beginning of panic. We were in the process for an hour. James pulls out his phone, checks the timestamp on Marcus's. First missed call. You've had my nephew here for 53 minutes, treating him like a criminal, making him cry in public, and you haven't even done the basic due diligence of checking if his name is on the account? Sir, if you would just calm down, do. Not tell me to calm down. James's voice rises for the first time, and the lobby freezes. You made my 10-year-old nephew cry. You detained him, you treated him like a thief. And now you're telling me to calm down? Would you have treated him this way if he were white? The question lands like a grenade in the middle of the lobby. Several people gasp. Others look away, suddenly fascinated by their phones or the floor or anything except the confrontation unfolding. Chun sputters. This has nothing to do with race, doesn't it? James steps closer and Chun instinctively backs up. A black child walks into your bank with proper documentation and you assume fraud. You don't verify. You don't check. You humiliate him publicly for an hour. Tell me, Mr. Chen, when was the last time you detained a white child for trying to access their own account? I was following protocol. No, you were following prejudice. James turns to the lobby, addressing the witnesses who have been complicit in their silence. All of you watched a child be treated like a criminal and said nothing. You filmed it, you whispered about it. You judged him based on his shoes and his skin, and not one of you asked if maybe, just maybe, he was telling the truth. A woman near. The investment desk looks down, shame coloring her face. The teenager with the phone slowly lowers it, suddenly aware that she's captured her own cruelty in high definition. The businessman, Harrison, clears his throat uncomfortably. Jerry, the security guard, feels the weight of James's words like a physical blow. Because he's right. Jerry stood there. Jerry watched. Jerry chose his paycheck over a child's dignity, and that choice sits in his throat like poison. I want to see the account, James demands. Now, pull up the information, verify my nephew's name, and then I want to speak to your regional director, because I promise you, Mr. Chen, this conversation is far from over. Chun, trapped and knowing it, nods to Jessica. Pull up the account. Jessica returns to her station, fingers shaking slightly as she types. The account number from Marcus's card. The search command. The screen loading, and then her. Face goes pale. She stares at the monitor, then looks at Chen, then back at the screen. Sir, she says quietly, you need to see this. Chun crosses to the teller station, and what he sees on the screen makes his carefully constructed confidence crumble.
The account is real. The name reads, Marcus Elijah Johnson, minor account custodian, Evelyn Marie Johnson, deceased. And the balance is $847,332.16, 43 years of housekeeping, 43 years of saving quarters and dollars of taking the bus instead of the car service, of sewing clothes instead of buying new ones, of denying herself every luxury so that her grandson could have opportunities.
Every tax return deposited. Every birthday check from the family she cleaned for. Every coin found in couch cushions. Every bonus saved. Every sacrifice made visible in a single number that represents a lifetime of love transformed into legacy. Chun's face cycles through expressions: shock, horror, realization of exactly how badly he's miscalculated. He has not just insulted a child. He has not just made a mistake. He has publicly accused and humiliated the heir to nearly $1 million, in front of witnesses on camera while that heir's successful uncle watched. The legal implications alone could destroy the branch. The publicity could ruin careers. The discrimination lawsuit that is now virtually inevitable could cost the bank millions on top of the balance. Marcus controls. James sees Chun's face and knows exactly what the manager is seeing.
"That's right," he says quietly.
"My mother spent her entire life on her knees cleaning other people's dirt so that her grandson could stand tall, and you made him cry over it."
The lobby has gone completely silent.
Even the ambient sounds seem to have stopped. No ringing phones, no clicking keyboards, just the weight of collective realization settling over everyone present. James kneels beside Marcus, his voice gentle now, the rage reserved for the adults who deserve it. "You okay, nephew?" Marcus nods, wiping his face with the sleeve of his too-big jacket. "I tried to tell them. I had Grandma's letter. I had everything. I know, buddy. I know you did." James pulls Marcus into a hug and the boy collapses into his uncle's arms, the tears coming harder now, not from fear, but from relief. From the release of carrying that burden alone. Chen stands frozen at the teller station, his mind racing through damage control scenarios, apology, explanation, anything to contain this before it explodes beyond the branch. But James isn't interested in giving him that opportunity yet. "Mr. Chen," James says, standing but keeping a protective hand on Marcus's shoulder, "I'm going to need several things. First, printed documentation of this account, including transaction history and verification of my nephew's status as account holder. Second, the contact information for your regional director and your corporate HR department. Third, copies of any security footage from the past hour. And fourth, the names of every employee who participated in or witnessed my nephew's detention." "Sir, I can explain." "I don't want your explanation. I want documentation. Because what happened here today isn't just poor customer service. It's discrimination. It's the illegal detention of a minor. It's defamation. You called a child a con artist and a thief in public. And it's a pattern of racial bias that I suspect didn't start this morning and won't end unless there are consequences." Chun's face has gone from pale to red. "Now wait just a minute. No, you wait." James's voice is steel. "You wait while I decide whether to handle this quietly through your corporate channels or whether to walk out of here. Call the law firm I have on retainer and let them explain to a jury exactly what you did today. You wait while I consider whether the NAACP might be interested in this case. You wait while I think about how many news outlets would love a story about a bank manager racially profiling a child whose grandmother saved for 43 years. The businessman Harrison speaks up. "Now hold on, sir. I think you're overreacting. It was an honest mistake." James rounds on him. "An honest mistake?" He's a child with proper identification who was detained, accused of fraud, and humiliated for an hour without anyone bothering to check if he was telling the truth. That's not a mistake, that's prejudice. And the fact that you watched it happen and said nothing makes you complicit. Harrison's face reddens, but he has no response. He looks around for support and finds none. Even those who might have agreed with him earlier are smart enough to stay silent now. A new voice enters the conversation. "What in God's name is going on here?" Everyone turns to see a woman in her 60s, black, with silver-streaked hair and a presence that commands immediate attention. She wears a corporate suit with a regional director badge. Patricia Michaels, Regional Operations Director, First National Bank. Chun looks like he might faint. The regional director is not supposed to be here. She's based downtown at the main office, and her unscheduled appearance at a branch means something has already gone wrong. Miss Michaels, Chen stammers. I wasn't expecting, clearly. Patricia's eyes sweep the lobby, taking in the scene. The tearful child, the angry uncle, the guilty faces of staff and customers. The phone in the teenager's hands still recording. She's been in banking for 37 years and she's seen this exact scenario play out too many times. The details change, but the structure remains. A black customer, an assumption of criminality. A manager who valued bias over verification. She's also seen the aftermath. Lawsuits, settlements, career-ending terminations, branches shuttered. And she's tired, so deeply tired of having the same conversation about basic human dignity. Asterisk, someone explain. She says, and the authority in her voice makes it clear that lies will not be tolerated. James speaks first, his voice calm but factual, laying out exactly what happened. Marcus's arrival, the immediate suspicion, the public accusations, the hour-long detention without verification, the tears, the humiliation. He speaks like a man building a legal case, because that's exactly what he's doing. Chen tries to interject with explanations and justifications, but Patricia holds up a hand. Mr. Chen, I'll hear from you in a moment. First, let me see the account. In question, Jessica, still at the terminal, turns the monitor so Patricia can see. The regional director's face tightens as she reads the details. The account history showing regular deposits over decades, the account holder names, the balance. That represents a lifetime of work and sacrifice. And you didn't verify any of this before detaining the child? Patricia asks Chen. I was being cautious, you were being prejudiced. Patricia doesn't raise her voice, but the disappointment is crushing. Mr. Chen, how many white children? Have you detained for fraud this year? That's not a fair comparison. How many? Chen's silence is answer enough. Patricia turns to Marcus, and her voice softens. Sweetheart, I am so sorry for what you experienced here today. This is not how we treat customers, and it's certainly not how we treat children. Your grandmother's legacy deserves respect, and so do you. Marcus nods, unable to speak, the kindness almost harder to bear than the cruelty had been. Patricia addresses the lobby. Everyone still here, everyone who witnessed what happened, you need to ask yourselves what you're going to do differently the next time. You see someone being treated unjustly, because silence is participation, watching is complicity. You may not have been wearing the bank's uniform, but you had a choice to speak up, and you chose comfort over courage. The guilt in the room is palpable. The teenager deletes her video, though she knows it's already backed up to the cloud, already a permanent record of her own cruelty. The woman who clutched her purse earlier has tears in her eyes. Harrison looks at his shoes, expensive Italian leather, so much nicer than Marcus's worn sneakers. And suddenly that comparison feels like an indictment. Jerry, the security guard, steps forward. His voice is rough with emotion. Ma'am, I need to say something. He looks at Marcus and there's anguish in his face. Son, I'm sorry. I stood there and watched them hurt you, and I said nothing because I was afraid of losing my job. But that's not an excuse. I should have protected you. That's what I'm supposed to do, protect people. And I failed you. The apology hangs in the air, raw and honest. Marcus looks at Jerry, at this older black man who carries his own history of compromise and survival, and something passes between them, not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. The acknowledgement that the system puts black people in impossible positions, that sometimes survival and dignity are forced into competition. Thank you for saying that, Marcus says quietly. I was scared you hated me too. Never, Jerry says. And the word breaks. Never. I saw my grandson in you and I was ashamed of myself for not standing up. But I'm standing now. Ms. Michaels, whatever happens, I need to report that Mr. Chen violated multiple protocols today. He detained a minor without verification, made accusations without evidence, and created a hostile environment. I should have reported it immediately, and I'm reporting it now. Chen's face goes white. A report from his own security staff combined with the regional director's presence and a potential lawsuit means his career is effectively over. Jerry, you can't. I can, and I am. Jerry stands straighter, and something in him has shifted. The cost of silence has finally exceeded the cost of speech. Asterisk Patricia Michaels makes a decision. Mr. Chen, you are suspended effective immediately. Pending a full investigation. Jessica, you're suspended as well. Jerry, please escort them both to their lockers to collect personal items, then escort them from the premises. They are not to access any computer systems or remove any bank documents. This is ridiculous. Chun explodes, his professional mask, finally cracking completely. I was protecting the bank. I was following my instincts. Your instincts are the problem, Patricia says coldly. Your instincts told you that a black child couldn't possibly have a legitimate account. Your instincts told you that his clothes and his skin were more reliable than his documentation. Your instincts are rooted in racism, Mr. Chun, and this bank cannot afford employees whose instincts create legal liability and moral bankruptcy. You can't prove this was about race, can I? Patricia's voice sharpens. Let's pull your performance history. Let's look at customer complaints. Let's examine which customers get benefit of the doubt in your branch and which ones get interrogated. Let's review security footage from the past year and count how many times you've treated black customers differently than white customers. Would you like me to do that, Mr. Chen? Because I promise you, if this goes to court, opposing counsel will do exactly that analysis, and they will find a pattern. I guarantee it. Chen has no response. His mouth opens and closes, but no words. Come out. The reality of his situation is finally penetrating. His career is over. Not just this job, but his career in banking. A termination for racial discrimination follows you, appears in background checks, becomes a permanent stain. Jessica is crying, understanding that her complicity has cost her as well. She's 24 years old, student loans to pay, rent due. In 2 weeks, and she's just lost her job for going along with her manager's prejudice instead of asking a single verification question. As Jerry escorts them out, Patricia turns her attention to the broader situation. She addresses the remaining staff. Everyone else, return to your stations. We're going to continue serving customers, but we're doing it right. Anyone makes an assumption about a customer based on appearance. I will personally ensure they join Mr. Chen in unemployment. She pulls out her phone, makes 3 calls in rapid succession. Corporate HR, legal, and corporate communications. Each call is brief and direct, laying out the situation and the steps being taken. By the time she hangs up, the institutional responses in motion investigations, policy reviews, media preparation, *, then Patricia turns to James and Marcus. I need you both to come to my office. We need to process Marcus's transaction properly, provide documentation, and I need to hear everything that happened in your own words for the official report. In Patricia's office, she's commandeered Chen's. Both for the space and for the symbolic statement, the atmosphere shifts. With the door closed and the performance over, Patricia's professional armor cracks slightly, revealing genuine distress. I'm going to be honest with you both, she says, settling into the chair behind the desk. What happened today is inexcusable. But it's not unique. Our industry has a problem. Banking has always had a problem with racial bias, from redlining to loan discrimination to cases like this. We create policies and training programs, but policies don't change hearts and training. Doesn't eliminate prejudice. James nods. I appreciate your honesty. What happens now? Several things, if you're willing. First, full documentation of the incident, including witness statements and security footage. Second, a formal apology from the bank's CEO, not some corporate boilerplate, but a real acknowledgement of harm. Third, policy changes at this branch and across the region. Mandatory retraining, revised verification procedures, consequences for staff who don't follow protocol. And compensation? James asks bluntly. Whatever your lawyers deem appropriate within reason. The bank will not fight you on this. We were wrong. We harmed a child. We deserve the consequences. James considers this. I want something else too. A scholarship fund in my mother's name, Evelyn Johnson, specifically for black students pursuing higher education. Funded by the bank, administered through a third party to ensure it actually reaches the community. $100,000 annually for the next 10 years. Patricia doesn't hesitate. Done. I'll have legal draw up the papers. And one more thing, James continues. Jerry Washington, the security guard. He made a mistake today, but he owned it. He apologized and he did the right thing when it counted. I want him protected. No retaliation, no subtle pressure to quit. And I want him promoted to head of security for this branch with appropriate pay increase. Asterisk Patricia makes a note. Agreed. He showed integrity when it mattered most. That's worth rewarding. Marcus has been quiet through this negotiation, processing what it means to have his pain transformed into policy, his grandmother's legacy into a scholarship fund. Will it help other kids? He asked suddenly. The scholarship thing? Will it help kids like me? Asterisk yes, baby, Patricia says, and her voice is gentle. It will help a lot of kids like you. Kids whose parents and grandparents work hard and save and sacrifice. Kids who deserve opportunities. Your grandmother's story will open doors for hundreds of young people. Marcus nods, and for the first time since walking into the bank, he smiles. Slightly. Grandma would like that. She always said to help people when you can. The account documents are processed correctly this time. Verification of Marcus's identity. Confirmation of his status as account holder. Transfer of full custodial rights now that he has a legal guardian. The balance $847,332.16 is broken down in a detailed statement showing decades of deposits, interest accumulation, and the slow building of wealth through sheer persistence. James explains what the money means. College tuition secured, graduate school if Marcus wants it, a down payment on a house someday, seed capital for a business, or simply security, the knowledge that an emergency won't destroy his future. It's freedom bought in quarters and dollar bills, by a woman who scrubbed floors and dreamed bigger than her circumstances. Asterisk as word of the incident spreads, and it spreads fast, through social media and local news and the whisper networks that connect Black communities. The response is complex and layered. The teenager who filmed part of the confrontation posts a tearful apology video. I recorded a child being humiliated, and I thought it was entertainment. I thought I was documenting something suspicious. But I was really just participating in his dehumanization. I was taught to assume that Black people in certain spaces don't belong, and I didn't question that assumption. I'm sorry, Marcus. I deleted the video, but I can't delete what I did. All I can do is be better. Her video goes viral, not because people forgive her, but because it names something many people recognize in themselves, the learned prejudice, the unexamined assumptions, the comfort of bias. The comments section becomes a battlefield, and then, slowly, a confessional, as people share their own moments of complicity, their own failures to speak up. A local news station picks up the story. 10-year-old detained at bank while trying to access grandmother's account. The report is careful with Marcus's privacy, doesn't show his face, but tells Evelyn Johnson's story, 43 years as a housekeeper, a lifetime of saving, a grandson left with a legacy and a trauma. The community response is immediate. A GoFundMe appears not for Marcus, he doesn't need money, but for other children in similar situations. A legal defense fund for families facing discrimination. It raises $200,000 in 3 days. Church groups organize protests outside the bank branch. Signs read, Black children are not criminals. Dignity is not dependent on balance. Evelyn Johnson's legacy matters. The protests are peaceful but persistent. A weekly reminder that the community will not forget, will not let this moment dissolve into comfortable amnesia. Local Black business owners share their own stories of banking discrimination, being followed by security, having their business deposits questioned, being offered worse loan rates than white counterparts with identical credit. The stories pile up until the pattern is undeniable, until even those who wanted to believe Chun was an isolated case must confront the systemic nature of the problem. First National Bank's corporate office, understanding the PR nightmare unfolding, moves quickly. The CEO records a video apology that's actually specific. Names Marcus, acknowledges Evelyn Johnson's legacy, admits the bank's failure, outlines concrete steps. It's not perfect, corporate apologies never are, but it's more than the usual hollow words. The bank announces a comprehensive review of policies, mandatory anti-bias training for all staff, and the creation of an independent review board to investigate customer complaints of discrimination. They publicize the Evelyn Johnson Scholarship Fund, making it a centerpiece of their commitment to community. Some see it as genuine contrition, others see it as damage control. Both perspectives hold truth. Robert Chun's termination becomes official. He attempts to fight it, claims wrongful termination, but the evidence is overwhelming. Security footage, witness statements, the pattern of complaints, and his own words condemning him. His lawyer advises him to take the severance and disappear quietly. Chun does, and 6 months later resurfaces in another state, in another career, carrying the weight of a moment that defined and destroyed him. Jessica, the teller, takes a different path. She writes a letter to Marcus, not asking for forgiveness, but acknowledging harm, explaining how she had learned to defer to authority even when authority was wrong. How she had been taught that compliance was professionalism. She enrolls in anti-racism workshops, begins volunteering with organizations that support minority youth, and eventually finds work at a credit union that explicitly focuses on serving underbanked communities. She carries the shame of that morning, but she transforms it into action. Jerry Washington becomes head of security, and he transforms the role. He conducts training on implicit bias, shares his own story of that morning, teaches younger security staff that their job is to protect everyone, especially those the world sees as threatening. His grandson, inspired by his honesty, writes a school essay about courage and compromise that wins a national contest. Jerry frames it in his office, a reminder of why he finally spoke up. Harrison, the businessman who dismissed Marcus's treatment, as overreacting, finds the incident haunting him. He sees Marcus's face when he closes his eyes, sees the moment he chose comfort over intervention. 3 months later, he donates $50,000 to the Evelyn Johnson Scholarship Fund, anonymous. It doesn't erase his silence, but it's a step toward acknowledging it. The woman who clutched her purse, whose daughter asked why the boy was crying, has a different reckoning. She realizes her daughter absorbed every unspoken lesson that morning. Black children are threats. Wealth belongs only to certain people. Dignity is conditional. She begins the uncomfortable work of examining her own prejudices, having hard conversations with her daughter, understanding that racism isn't just slurs and violence, but also assumptions and silence. 6 months after the incident, Marcus sits in a therapist's office. The bank agreed to cover his therapy as part of the settlement, understanding that what happened wasn't just an inconvenience, but a trauma. Dr. Angela Morrison, a black woman who specializes in racial trauma, has been working with Marcus to process the layered hurt, the grief of losing his grandmother, the violation of being suspected and detained, the public humiliation, the betrayal of being assumed criminal by adults who were supposed to protect him. How are you feeling about going into banks now? Dr. Morrison asks during one session. Marcus shrugs. Uncle James takes me now. We went to a different bank to open a checking account for my allowance. It was okay. People were nice. But I kept waiting for them to get mean. That's a normal response to what you experienced. Your trust was violated, and it takes time to rebuild that. I keep thinking about the people who watched, Marcus says quietly. Like the manager was obviously wrong. But all those people just stood there. Some of them filmed me. Why didn't anyone help? It's the question at the heart of everything. The question that separates theoretical anti-racism from actual intervention. Dr. Morrison doesn't give him easy answers because there aren't any. She talks about bystander effect, about how people assume someone else will act. She talks about how prejudice creates a diffusion of responsibility. If everyone believes you're suspicious, no individual feels obligated to question that belief. But. She also talks about the people who did act eventually. His uncle, Patricia Michaels. Jerry Washington finding his courage. She talks about how systems change one intervention at a time, one person deciding that this moment, this person, this child matters more than their comfort. Marcus is back in school, where his classmates know what happened. The video circulated before being deleted, and kids talk. Some treat him like a celebrity. Others avoid him, unsure what to say. A few white students whose parents watched without intervening are forbidden from playing with him. Their parents' guilt transmuting into blame, as if Marcus is the problem. Rather than the mirror, but Marcus also finds all eyes. A teacher who uses the incident to teach a unit on civil rights and contemporary racism, carefully and age-appropriately. A school counselor who checks in weekly. Friends who tell him what happened was wrong, who share their own stories of being followed in stores or having police called on them for existing in white spaces. The scholarship fund, now fully established and funded, awards its first round of scholarships
20 black students receive $10,000 each for college expenses. At the award ceremony, Marcus is invited to speak. He's terrified, but Uncle James helps him write something. Standing at the microphone,
Small in his suit jacket that finally fits. Properly, Marcus says. My grandma always told me that how we treat people matters more than how much money we have. She didn't save all that money because she loved money. She saved it because she loved me, and she wanted me to have chances she never got. The bank manager saw my shoes and decided I was a thief. He didn't see my grandma's love. He didn't see all her hard work. He just saw what he expected to see. Marcus pauses, looking at the scholarship recipients, young black faces full of hope and determination. I hope you use this money to do amazing things. But I also hope you remember that your worth isn't in a bank account. My grandma was worth everything when she had nothing, and she's worth everything now. Don't let anyone make you feel small because of what you have or don't have. You're valuable because you're human. That should be enough. The audience gives him a standing ovation. But Marcus barely notices. He's thinking about his grandmother, wishing she could see this moment, hoping she knows that her sacrifice rippled outward into opportunity for others. Asterisk, 2 years pass like pages turning in a book written by steady hands. Marcus is 12 now, taller but still carrying the careful posture of someone who learned young that the world measures you before you speak. The apartment where he lives with Uncle James is different, brighter, bigger, but decorated with his grandmother's things. Her Bible on the coffee table, her photographs on the walls, her sewing box that no one opens but everyone protects. The money sits mostly untouched, invested carefully by Uncle James with advisors who explain everything in language Marcus can understand. College funds, trust structures, emergency reserves. The balance grows quietly, compounding interest adding to what sacrifice already built. But the real inheritance isn't the dollars. It's the knowledge that he was loved enough for someone to deny themselves everything so he could have anything. Marcus volunteers now at a community center, helping younger kids with homework. He recognizes himself in some of them, the careful movements, the too big clothes, the weight of representing more than themselves. He tells them stories not always about the bank, but about dignity, about knowing your worth regardless of what others see. One afternoon, a 9-year-old named Destiny asks him, "Did it hurt when they laughed at you?" Marcus considers the question with the seriousness it deserves. Yeah, it hurt a lot. But you know what hurt more? Thinking nobody cared enough to stop it. That's why I'm here, so kids like you know that someone always cares. Someone always sees you. The scholarship fund has grown beyond the initial commitment. Corporate donations, community fundraising, and Marcus's own decision to contribute a portion each year have turned it into something sustainable. 50. Students have received support so far. Some study engineering, others education, one is pre-med, another is pursuing social work. They carry Evelyn Johnson's name forward, each one a living extension of her belief that the future could be purchased through persistence. At the annual scholarship ceremony, now an established event in the community calendar, Marcus no longer needs notes to speak. He stands before the new recipients, young black faces full of dreams that deserve fuel, and shares what he's learned. My grandmother used to say that money is just a tool. She was right. The account she built for me opened doors, sure. It paid for the therapy I needed after that day at the bank. It's going to pay for college. But the real gift wasn't the balance, it was the lesson. She taught me that your value doesn't come from what you own. It comes from who you are and how you treat people. He pauses, looking at the audience where Uncle James sits front row, where Patricia Michaels attends every year, where Jerry Washington brings his grandson, where former customers from that day sit carrying their own reckonings. Some of you will face moments like I did. Someone will look at your shoes or your neighborhood or your skin and decide you don't belong. They'll laugh, they'll assume. They'll try to make you small. And in that moment, you have to remember, their assumptions are not your identity. Their prejudice is not your problem to fix, it's theirs. You belong in every space you enter, not because of what's in your account, but because you're human. That should always be enough. The applause is genuine, but Marcus barely hears it. He's thinking about the girl in the third row whose eyes are wet, who recognized her own story in his words. After the ceremony, she approaches him quietly. They followed me in a store last week, she says. Security, I was just buying a birthday card for my mom. Marcus nods. Did you do anything wrong? No, I had money. I guess I looked wrong to them. You didn't look wrong. They saw wrong. There's a difference. He pulls out a card with Dr. Morrison's information. This is my therapist. She helps people process this stuff. It's okay to need help carrying it. The girl takes the card and Marcus sees something shift in her posture, the understanding that the hurt is real. That needing support isn't weakness, that someone else has walked this path and survived. Uncle James watches his nephew from across the room, and pride swells in his chest so fiercely it's almost painful. His mother Evelyn would be proud. Beyond words, not of the money, though that was her gift. Proud of this, Marcus turning pain into purpose, humiliation into help, trauma into testimony. Later, driving home, James says, "You know your grandmother would be losing her mind with pride right now." Marcus smiles, "I hope so. I keep trying to be the person she saw when she saved all that money, someone worth investing in." You already are, nephew. You already are. They drive past the old bank branch First National has rebranded it. Changed. The name, installed new management, added diversity training plaques and community investment displays. The changes are real but incomplete because systems shift slowly and prejudice doesn't evaporate with a memo. But there are changes. Jerry Washington still works there as head of security, and under his watch, not a single customer has been detained. Without cause. He trains every new hire personally. Tells them about a 10-year-old boy in scuffed shoes who taught him that courage delayed is almost courage denied. Some understand immediately. Others need time. But the seed is planted.